you. And I don't know how to introduce this woman. She is renowned and incredible. And if you don't have one of her books, there's so many to choose from. So choose whatever you like, and she's just wonderful. Yes, historical or contemporary. And so, and she's just good. She's just a good lady. And so, I can't even, words don't do justice. So I'm just going to hand this over to you. This Jody Thomas.
Thank you. Thank you. I was happy to come talk today. Whenever they called me and Rosa couldn't come, I thought I can cover for her because she would cover for me if I was down in Lubbock, and I can always depend on her. And I'm glad to be here because I know many of you, almost all of you, and I am the writer in residence at WT. That's an appointment that I'm very proud of, and I'm in my office doing nothing all day long, and I'd love it if you come by and visit. I'm just kidding. I would love you to come by and visit. I'll take you to lunch, but the office is like a three-ring circus going on, and you are welcome to come watch what's happening. Today we're going to talk about the secrets of success. And I think this is very important to talk about, and I wanted to tell you a little bit about my journey into the secrets of success. It took me almost 5 years to sell my first book. That was working hard at it. I don't know how many rejections I got, but they were a great number. And when I did sell my first book, after 5 years, I sold it to Kensington, and I have never received a rejection since. It took me 16 books to make the New York Times. I hit the New York Times the summer that I took on writer in residence. I also received that summer my first big contract that made it possible for me not to work, and I just took a job. I don't know why I did that. But so that gives you an idea. I am in the Hall of Fame for Romance Writers of America. There are only 11 of us that have made it into the Hall of Fame. You have to click off several things, and I've written the best book of the year nationwide 3 times, and that's one thing that'll get you in. So that to kind of get you, that kind of tells you a little bit about me. But I wanted to start by saying, the other day I was talking to a group, and a woman asked me the strangest question. She said, "Did you ever think you would get to this level?" And I looked at her and I said, "Yes, every single day of my life I thought I would get to this level. Are you kidding? Yes, from the beginning." And I thought back, and I did think that. That was exactly what I wanted. I wanted to be at the top of the game. Last month, one man was beating me on Bookspan, and that was Nicholas Sparks, and I'm going to have to kill him to get in that #1 spot. But it's really, yeah, I did think I'd get there. Whenever I went to a conference, before I had sold, I bought a T-shirt, and it said in big letters, New York Times bestseller, and in little letters it said, in training. And every night I would go in, I would take off my teaching clothes, and I would put that sweatshirt on. And I wore it every single night. And the reason I wore it was to remind myself of that goal. And I tried to find it this morning. I know it's packed away in somewhere, and I wore it out. I literally wore, and we don't wear clothes out anymore, but I wore that T-shirt out. So yes, I did expect that. That was my goal. And today I want you to think about what your goal is in the writing game. Because, hey, I'm the genie in the bottle. I'm telling you, you can have it. But you got to be careful what you ask for. The dearest friend of my entire life I met in the first writing class I took at Amarillo College. Her name was Dewana Pace. And she always said, my goal isn't to make money. My goal is I want people to love my work. And people did love her work. She wrote 18 books, and they loved her work. The problem that she had in the game was she could not meet a deadline. And she would be sometimes 6 months behind on a deadline, and so the publisher wouldn't pick her up again. She ended up publishing for 5 major houses, at different houses, because her writing was so good, but she couldn't meet a deadline. Debbie Macomber told me one time that the secret of her success, she said, I'm not that strong a writer, but I turn the books in time on every time I turn them in. So think about what you want. Dwana wanted people to love her books, and people did love her books. And she was in the middle of a book when she passed away, and the only time I will ever do that in my life is I edited the book and sent it in, and they were fine with that. So, but it was very hard for me to do because I didn't have her little nuggets of humor that she always put in the books. So it was very hard to do. And but she got what she wanted. She wanted people to love her books. Now, me, from the very beginning, I'm not near that deep. I wanted money. I wanted to be able to put my kids through school. I had these 2 cum laude kids, and I had to get them through college. And I worked 2 jobs the entire time I was in college, and I decided my kids at least would just have to work 1 because I was going to put them through. I was going to work it. And that was my goal. And as the years went by, my goals changed, of course, to other things. But always it's like Monopoly. The money was the way I measured it. I made rules for myself, and one of them is never accept a contract less than the contract you got before. Now, at the time I was starting out, which as of September 8th, I have been a published writer for 30 years. So I passed my 30-year mark. So when I started out, my goal, I thought I'd write a book a year. And the first 16 years of my career, I wrote 17 books. The last 13 years of my year, I pushed that number up to 47 or 48. We can't decide, but by the end of the year, I'll have 48. So, so you think about what you want. What are you looking for? Because you can have it. Everyone in this room has plenty of talent. Everyone can have it. Now, some people come to me and say, I want to just see the books. I want to hold my book. And so that's what they want. And they can have that. When I started out, I didn't even think about self-publishing because 30 years ago, it was a bottomless pit. You never made any money out of it. Now, I know lots of people who are making $1 million a year. And a lot of people. One day I was sitting in a room on a board, and there were 12 people on the board, the national board. 6 were traditional writers, 6 were self-published, and in all of the self-published were making more money than the traditional published. And the reason is you can make $1 million a year, easy. I know people that are doing it, a lot of people. Now the trouble is how much are you willing to do? How much time? How much are you willing to do to be that success? And you may say, well, I heard a man say, well, I'm not really willing to put in that much time. I can't give up my family. And I thought, oh, yeah, I hated my kids. I just let them starve in the basement. You know, how could they possibly think we're going to give up our kids, you know? But however, mine are available now that they're 40. So, think about what you want and think about what you're willing to do. And another thing that people don't do that amazes me is they will not invest in their own career. They will not invest in their own, not other people's, but their own career. Money, time, effort. You know, I've heard people say, well, I'm never taking a class. I think a lot of people think if they read a book, then they're ready to write. Not even a book on writing, just a book. So no, you need to study. and you think about it, how would you feel if you walked in and the doctor said, well, I never went to med school, but I read about it. That wouldn't count. So you got to put some time, you got to put some money. 9 years ago, I guess it was, I started the Writing Academy at WT. This was not an easy job. It took me 3 years to get it off the ground and get the right people working to help me that could cover all the holes in my brain that I couldn't handle registration and stuff like that. But we put together an academy. The reason we did that was simply because I know so many people who work full-time and didn't have time to invest in a whole class, and we offer an entire semester class in writing in 5 days, and you live and breathe writing for 5 days. You check in the dorm Sunday night, and you don't do anything but talk about writing until Friday afternoon. And I wanted that. We have published out of that Writing Academy over 100 books. And this is not we published, they published them. But the reason was because the people were willing to invest. Some people walk in my office and I see success in their eyes. I see that they're willing to do what it takes to do it. So one thing I want to do today is I want to share the secrets, share some of the process, and I've got a great team here who can help me do it. And we're half and half. The reason we're half self-published and half traditional is because in a few years we're all going to be hybrids, and y'all better get ready for it. We're all going to do both. I published 48 books traditionally. I published for almost every major house in New York. But I can promise you I'm going to self-publish in the next 2 years one of my own books on writing. So we're going to all be hybrids. The people that do it right, either way, know the secrets, but they're willing to share. All you have to do is listen. And most people who aren't listening are saying, well, I don't want to do that. I want to do it my way. And the first thing I would say, the first advice I would give you, because I've told you what my goals are, the first advice I would give you is pick a lane. Pick a lane. I remember when my son Cole, he was learning to drive. We were driving all over the country for the summer. We were both teachers, so we could do that. And Tom said, I'm going to let him drive every time we're on a lonely road. So he was always driving, and my husband was always yelling, pick a lane, Cole, pick a lane. So pick a lane. Do not write a children's book, an adult, a horror, a mystery, a real life experience. If you do that, you're going to have a lot of fun, and if that's your goal, go for it. But you're not going to develop as a writer. If you want to develop your career, pick a lane. Any lane, but pick a lane. Well, maybe not any lane. There's probably a few lanes you'll run off the road on. But I would like to ask these successful writers what their goal was when they started and what they did to achieve it.
Hi. First of all, I want to give you a warning. Move. I wound up with blood clots in my leg, 4 of them, and I have spent this last week really in bad pain and hospital and doctor's offices, and you don't want to do that. So move. Get up out of your chair and move, because that's what caused mine. I always said from the very first, when I published my very first book in 2002, I believe it was, that I would be a success if I could touch one reader's heart with something that I wrote. That's what I considered success. Money didn't interest me, fame, recognition, all of that, but just touch a reader. And so that first book was A Night on the Texas Plains, and I did that. right away, I started getting a lot of recognition. But because of the story, I based it on a true event in my childhood when I learned that this little neighbor girl that I played with had been won in a poker game. And that bothered me so bad. And I promised myself that I would one day give her a happy life that she never had. So anyway, that's what the first book is about. This cowboy sits down at a poker table and he wins this baby. And she totally changes his life and he changes hers. And so it was, that was my start. And Source Books is going to let me write her story when she's an adult. I've already written it. In fact, it comes out this next year. And she learns the secret that they've kept of how she came to be with these people, and she just knows through her family she loves them and they love her, and so it destroys a lot. Well, it shakes her to her core. So anyway, putting true events into personal things into your stories really adds depth, and just a depth that you can't get otherwise. And readers really relate to that. They want to see us as just like them. It's hard for me sometimes to open up to readers. I tend to keep all of that stuff inside. I thought, I just think they won't want to know that. That's boring. Or, but they do. They want to know what we feel and how we react to things. And so that's one of the secrets, is to open up and just talk about personal things, not some things you keep private. I don't care what it is, but something, yeah, you can't talk about everything, but you know what you can say and not. But I think it was hard. It was hard to write that and to get out those emotions. So just do it and. I have a high school education. I graduated. I always read, and I always wrote. Some things I wrote, short stories or poetry or articles for school, you know. And reading will really, really help you. Just be an avid reader, and you'll come up with great ideas. Not stealing it from other people, but I'm not saying that. But ideas just come to you, I think, faster and stronger than if you don't read. I took a few writing courses at night because I work full time, and so I did a few of those. That's about it. just practice and write. This is a craft that you have to learn by doing. You can't learn it any other way. You just got to do it. So that's all mine.
I have to argue with Linda. I'll tell you exactly why she's a success. She has a work ethic all of us admire. I don't know if you've called her, but if you call her at 7:30, she's at her desk working. You call her at 1 o'clock, she's at her desk working. I'm usually in the car running around whenever I call her. But she probably works more hours per day than anyone I know. And that's why how many books do you have out this year?
5.
That answers it, yeah.
I wouldn't recommend.
That's her secret.
We're taking notes to be successful while we're talking about being successful. Oh, that's a good idea.
Okay. Well, I've spent most of my life writing, personnel policy manuals like the rest of y'all, job-related stuff. And I remember I had my youngest kid at 39, and I found in this cabinet, I was cleaning out a cabinet, a book on how to format a manuscript. I was like, I don't even know what this book is. And my husband said, you've always wanted to write a book. And then the exact same week, a friend said, you need to take Jody's class with me. And the very first night of class, I have it marked on my calendar. It was in 2003, and I yellow that date out. The first night of class, the very first thing she said was, you're a writer or you wouldn't be here. And I was stunned. Nobody had ever told me that I was a writer. Nobody ever had told me, you can make a living at this. You can do what you love and actually, feel fulfilled, whatever. And I went home and stayed up all night. It was like I wrote every story idea I'd ever had. And for 30 years. So I didn't want to write this stuff. I wanted to write romance. I wanted to be a romance writer like my friends. But that is not the stories that were in my head. So I love that. Pick a lane. The stories in my head were for children. And so that's what I decided to do. And the first thing that came out of that in 2010, finally, was a book for the kids at the Panhandle Museum in Canyon, because I gave tours of the patrolling wing and I needed a handout, and actually it was Jody and my husband who said, just do a book. And this just came out like it was about American energy. It went along with my talk at the museum. I went through, the first printing was 5,000. I had corporate sponsors because it was an educational tool. The vocabulary matched the 4th grade and 7th grade curriculum for energy. At the time, I went through 5,000 books in a year, and then I had to do a second printing. We went through 4,000 more, and I was like, I do not want to do this because it is work. Because I hauled books. I shipped books all to New Mexico, all over Texas, Kansas. I shipped 4 cases of books to a Kansas meeting. These books went everywhere, and you can get them for $99 on Amazon. There's like tons of them out there.
99
yeah, a penny to $99. I'm telling you, they're just all different price ranges. So, and I was like, I don't want to do that. I signed every one of those 8,000 books. I hauled them, shipped them, mailed them. That is self-publishing. And I thought, that is not fun. That is work. So I thought, I'm going to go the traditional route. Now, I love Jody's example of pick a lane. In this day and age, you need to pick a lane, traditional or self-publishing. It's 2 totally different mindsets. Both of them have time to write. You're going to spend most of your time writing, and there's money involved. And you got to decide what you want to do. So if you want traditional publishing, which I decided this is the book that got me a literary agent in New York City, you have to spend time, where are the literary agents and editors at? You're going to have to go to conferences. If you write for children, Society of Children's Book Writers. That's where I met my agent. I paid $50 extra, entered this book in a contest, and we worked on it. He picked mine out of 200, and I got a 15-minute personal meeting. And then we communicated over several months, and he helped me polish it, and then he offered me representation. And it wasn't like a big stars and fireworks going off. It was like, I said, I finished the edits. I sent it to him. 30 minutes later, he emailed me back and said, I'd like to represent you. What else you got going? And I was like, there weren't angels singing, or it was really surreal. And I said, thank you very much. I got a contract. I told my husband, I can't work for you anymore, because I had 2 teenagers, a full-time job, my husband's my boss, and I was freaking out because I had this contract on my desk, and I said, and I was like this, and I said, how am I going to do this? This is a huge deal. And, you know, you got to write. I'm going to have deadlines. It's not going to be just, you know, farting around, carrying books around. And he goes, just do your job. If you're a writer, do your job. And that's exactly what you've got to do. It's a job. You got to do your job. You got to decide what you want. So I signed the contract. This came out with a bang. We got lots of bites. The Random House Kid Lit Acquisitions Vice President sent me edits. She wrote on every page. I worked a month on that. It went through the channels of Random House. And you know, you got to understand traditional publishing, and these ladies can help you understand that, of how it works. It's not just one person deciding to take your book anymore. It's a whole committee of people. So it went through all the channels. I edited it. This book is excellent because I had so many people helping me polish it. And the acquisitions committee shot it down. It was marketing, because at the time we're looking at Hunger Games, Dystopian, World End. Mine is a frontier town with cute little kids solving a mystery, and the marketing department said New York City kids cannot relate to that book. They'll never read it. And my thinking is, man, there's a whole middle America of ranching and farm kids that I hang with that might like that book. But there you go. So I wrote a total of 6 books. I mean, that's what you do. You just go to the next one. And I wrote a total of 6 books and sent them to my agent. And 4 years into that, I was getting nowhere. And it just dawned on me one December, you know, in December at the end of the year, you're thinking about your goals and where you've gone. And I realized, I said, I don't write mainstream. I don't have a high concept, mainstream appeal. The books that are in my head are not going to work in New York City. They're just not. It's just a realization. And so in 2017, I took the self-publishing route. And I want to tell you, it is totally different from 2010 to 2017. It is so much easier. It's work, it's harder work, but it is so much easier. I mean, this book is on Smashwords, it's on Kobo, it's on, Kobo is Canada and Europe. Smashwords gets it on iTunes. My book is everywhere, and it's just like a PDF file, seriously. It's just the whole, so you got to decide. So then, if you want traditional, you're going to have to spend some money. You're going to have to go where the agents and editors are. You're going to have a high concept, one-line pitch that you practice over and over. And when you go to those conferences, you're going to have to make appointments, and you're going to have to practice that pitch. The DFW conference that Mike and I go, I've been to it twice, and I think you go every year. For it is an excellent conference. There's lots of agents and editors there. Writers League of Texas out of Austin has an agent-editor conference that's only agents and editors there. You know, decide what you want and then pick a lane. Like Jody said to me, is you got to pick a lane and give it all you have. And then if that doesn't working, then you gotta look. You write with your heart and soul, and you do the business with your head. And it was a very sad day when I had to write my agent a certified letter and tell him, do not represent me anymore. But I knew he was not going to be able to sell my stuff, because one editor loved my book, and she wanted me to make my town sheriff a werewolf.
That's just find and replace, right?
Yeah.
It's easy.
It's simple. So you have got to dig deep and understand your work and what you want, and that would be, you know, my advice. My secret to success is not the money. Now, my secret to success with 2 teenagers, a full-time job, if I can write the end and get the book to this form, I have succeeded. This is huge right here. So, you know, the whole time I was in that 4-year funk with the agent, hoping and praying for the best, I kept writing. So I've got 2 more books in this series. I can't pick a lane because my brain doesn't work that way. I've got a young adult series that's got 2 books. One I'm fixing to come out with it. I've got a Small Town Texas series that I want to do. My critique group's working on a Route 66 anthology. You know, if you are having trouble getting something to this point, get a group of you and y'all put together an anthology. Pick a theme. And our critique group, we all write in different genres. So we've got a ghost story. I'm writing a women's fiction. We're going to have a futuristic story with the common theme of Route 66. We're so excited about that. We'll be having a big launch party. Y'all are all invited. The opportunities now are unbelievable. You've just got to open your mind to the opportunities. And like Jody said, pick a lane. And every book is different. Every book is different. You know, and I think hybrid, I think you're exactly right for saying that word. That is a new term, and it's very important these days. So, anyway, people in the writing community are very generous. They will help you. They will answer your questions. Jody is one of the most generous people to our local community. She has helped so many people, inspired so many people. And when my very first publishing credit was Chicken Soup, and it was Jody who said, "You ought to have a book signing." And I thought she was crazy. But I had it at Walmart in Canyon. It was awesome. We went through 2 cases of Chicken Soup books. So anyway, so it's exciting time. I can't wait to read your stuff.
All right. Thank you. All right. I'm Ryan McSwain, and I feel a little bit outclassed up here. I write weird fiction, fantasy, horror, sci-fi, just kind of a mishmash. It's kind of hard to pick a lane, but weird is kind of a lane, a weird lane. I'm in a weird lane.
It's not a lane.
No, it's a writing style. It's a writing style. But fantasy sci-fi is a wide lane, but lots of different little lanes I'm still working on. You're actually finding me in a transition period. For the last 7 years, I've been a stay-at-home dad. And now that I say that, I can't believe that that's actually happened, that it's been 7 years. But my goal was in 7 years, the time it would take for both my kids to be at home, but then to be in school, that in that time I would write 3 good books and get them out. That would be success. I managed to get 2, I think, great books out. So instead of 3 good, I've got 2 great. But in that time, I did that. But now both my kids are in school all day, and it's just now happened, and it's crazy. So now that they're in school all day, I'm working on new goals. And my new goals, I think $1 million a year is a really nice goal to aim for. So on my way there, I'm hoping to start getting out books at a much faster rate. Maybe not 5 a year yet, but I think every 6 months is every 6 months is extremely doable. And I've had a few short stories published, but my current goal is to do that a lot more. As I think that's part of my marketing plan, is to get people to pay me to put stuff out. But no, well, it's a good idea. Well, it's also a great way to find readers. And I've found a few with horror stories that I've published and a few of that, but I'm going to keep trying to break that wall down and get some good stories out, because there's a huge audience there and they read. So that's part of my goal is more books, more short stories. And my goal right now to feel truly successful would be to be making as much doing this as I used to do at my day job. And that's not quite $1 million, but but that's where I'm at right now. I think we've talked a lot about success. I've kind of viewed what I've done as a series of accomplishments. Maybe I haven't reached superstar success, but getting a book out is successful. completing a Kickstarter and making and getting another book out is a huge accomplishment. Natalie got me a front page of the art section in the paper, and we'll call that an accomplishment. So I think what you have to do is you go toward these huge successes of $1 million a year or being a bestseller. You can make very achievable, realistic goals. And holding the book in your hand, if that's your final success, that's fine. But if that's a stepping stone on your way to stardom, that's even better. So that's what I've got, and let's pass it back down to Joe.
Okay, most of the time writers learn from writers, and let me tell you about a writer I know that I can see you doing this in a few years. I actually met her at an autographing in Dallas when a tornado hit Dallas, and we were talking in the restroom because that's where everybody had to go. And so we were hanging out in the restroom and waiting for the tornado to be over. And she said, "Where are you going next?" And I said, I'm crossing both Dallas and Fort Worth for my next talk." And she said, "Why don't you come home with me? And I'm a few blocks away, and wait out the tornado." So I went home, ended up spending the night with her, and all I knew was her name was Chris. And I called my husband, "I'm spending the night with this lady. Her name is Chris." And, "Oh, okay." And that night, we sit down, and she wanted to write. She'd been writing. She had been trying to sell. And she reminds me a little of you. And the reason is she really couldn't kind of find exactly, but then, you know, a lane doesn't always have to be an exact kind of book. It can be stories like The Twilight Zone. It can be stories that fit together in an odd way. And so I saw Chris a couple of years later, and she said, "I'm going to self-publish, but if I'm going to do it, I'm going to go full-out self-publishing." And I said, "Okay." And that was 2 years ago, and last July I saw her at RWA, the Romance Writers of America, and she said, "Will you come to my daughter's wedding?" And I said, "Sure, when is it?" And she said, "It's in Dallas," and she told me about it, and she said, "My daughter said, 'What's the budget on the wedding?' And I had to say, 'There is no budget. Whatever you want.'" She's making $40,000 a month selling beach books. What her area was, books don't have a lot to get together, but what she did is she made them all on the same beach. And so you know, whatever, you know, and there's stories of the people that come to this beach. And she also found out something that I want to pass to you that's a good secret. She said, "I was writing 100,000s, 90,000s, 75,000s, and I couldn't get them out fast enough, because if you're self-publishing, you bring them out. There's a magic to it." And she said, "I figured out I could write them 40. I'm writing them 40 now. I can write them twice as fast as I can. I bring them out twice as many." And she said, she said, "I don't know what to do with the money." She said, "Because my husband and I, we bought this house." And she said, "I'm not sure we don't want to move. And our kids are grown, you know." And I thought, well, I'd seen the house. I spent the night there. It was scary. But she was a real nice couple, but they have a room in the back for, they call them dislocated husbands. Her husband runs a business. It's where they put up windows, and sometimes his employees, their wives, kick them out, so he just lets them stay at their house. I'm not sure I want to stay, but do you see what I mean? Sometimes there's that had nothing to do with it. But Chris is a wonderful, giving person, and she will, if you need any help. But that's a secret she learned. Write shorter and bring them out fast.
Yeah, there's actually a big market. What they call weird is sometimes there's slipstream, is kind of the Twilight Zone feel, and there's actually a lot of people that are specifically.
So
That's one of
that
my
may be
keywords.
your lane. That's your lane.
Slipstream.
Uh-huh. 120,000 words? No, that's not a sweet spot. That's a hard to sell part. Cut it volume 1 and 2. make it 70. And readers are writing are an interesting thing is happening because when I went to Kindle, I was panicking. I was thinking I was going to lose my people that read books. And what happened is my book numbers didn't go down at all, but my Kindle began to climb, and now it's equal to the number of books, but the books are still going up. And what's happening is all of y'all have this problem. Most writers do. We have this terrible fear that we're going to run out of something to read. So we buy the whole series on Kindle instead of buying a book. We pack 4 books when we go on a weekend vacation just in case we might run out of something to read. And then we never even open them because we're busy doing the vacation. But so people are buying more and more and more books, and they buy them and read them, and they don't really get the concept with Kindle that you're reading an 80 or 100,000 words. You can write them 40. They love the story. They are happy, and they keep rolling. You know. So, no, books are getting shorter, not longer. How many words does one of your books? Between 75 and 85. Usually, it starts about 70 when I turn it in, and they talk to me about stuff, and then I go back and rewrite. Every time I rewrite, I add 5,000 words probably, just because I think of things to say. But when I started out, there were 120. They were historicals. And Linda's are still pretty long. How long are yours? Yeah, see, hers are a little over. Yeah, but people are reading shorter. They're enjoying it, and that's why we have a real problem now with novellas. Used to be 20,000 words, and now they're getting down to 5. Write a series, yeah. Another advice I would give you is write a series. And don't take 3 books that have nothing in common and make them all blue covers and call it a series. That is not a series. But write a series. Series is, when I was starting out, I thought, I think I'll write a trilogy after about 8 books. And my first trilogy was 5 books, and my second trilogy was 6 books. And I finally figured out I'm not going to call them trilogies anymore. I'm going to call them series. And this series I'm working on now, the Ransom Canyon series, is going to be 9 books. The Harmony series was 9 books. So, Robin Carr's, no, they're totally different stories. I'm not writing the same story. And Robin Carr's Virgin River was 18 books, I think, and book 12, she hit the New York Times #1, which is my goal. So they took the word. Well, you don't write the same story. You write it. Okay. Yeah. So, but I like your idea of your first goal being to make what you made. That was mine. I quit teaching, and I considered myself a success the day I made a teacher's salary. Yeah. So that was cool. So I'm going to let you take a break now, and when we come back, we're going to take questions for the group. So think of your questions. During the break, I'm going to pass out the first thing I published. Thought y'all might get a laugh. So, okay, thanks. What do we have, a 10-minute break?